All right, welcome back to Booze Bros and Cars, your favorite podcast about booze and cars, and we're your hosts. I am Eric.
I'm Mike.
I'm Carmelo.
And I'm Nick.
All right, and so first up, the beers we're going to be drinking. So all of us are actually going to be trying this guy out today. It's from Spanish Marie. It's actually their butter beer. Pretty excited to try that. Butterbeer is delicious. If you guys have not tried it, there's Mike, kind of doing the whole Vanna White thing. So if you haven't tried butterbeer at Universal, definitely got to go try it. Or actually, one of our local restaurants. I don't know if they still have it. They have a butterbeer beverage. It's nitro butterbeer. I think it's called, from Nice Guys. It's the
I haven't seen a post about that in a while.
Well, it was always on their menu, but it was really good because they had alcoholic whipped cream on top. It was delicious. And then
I had a cocktail the other day that I got that was really good.
Oh yeah, I need to go back. I haven't gone there in a while. All right, and then the next one, I'm going to be drinking a sour from Prairie Artisan. So it's called Slush. Kind of cool art right there. This is a sour ale with strawberry, raspberry, lemon, and lime. So I guess it's a strawberry raspberry lemonade. All right, Mike, what else are you drinking aside from the butterbeer?
So you guys probably noticed a trend. I try to go something a little bit lighter with every with the other things that we're drinking. But first beer I'm doing is from Alamrada. They're out of the Keys. This is the ale, so it's just basically a blonde ale that's brewed with lemon, lime, and orange. So it's kind of citrusy, kind of feels like a Corona with a lime type flavor, but it's pretty good, refreshing. Carmelo, what are you drinking?
So tonight, all I got is our butterbeer. I have a Tavor order, but it's been delayed, and I didn't just want to grab anything normal, and I wasn't able to make it down to number 3, so I just got the butterbeer tonight.
Nice. Nick?
Lightweight. I am actually triple fisting it tonight, just because I needed to take the edge off after a long day. So obviously I'm having the butterbeer, just a quick little bit of bourbon. I'm going to shout out to one of my sales guys who is from Kentucky. Unfortunately, he had to run home a couple weeks ago. His grandmother passed. But the thoughtful guy that he is through all that chaos, dude picked me up a bottle of Eagle Rare 10-year at some good old Kentucky prices. My first time having it. It is delicious.
You put herb on that bottle already. I like it.
Can't help myself. And the second was something unique this year from our buddy Brandon at number 3. Told me about it last week, and when I was there this week, I ended up just buying out the shelf. It is a pumpkin from Southern Tier, but it's a caramel pumpkin. So I got a 4-pack, a few for me and the wife, and actually gave Eric one while I was there because I felt bad for buying out the shelf. So I'm going to crack that open a little later and see how that is. Yeah, I love pumpkin. I actually have a keg at number 3 that I have to go pick up for my kegerator of pumpkin. And then I might even order a second keg of Warlock just to keep stuffed away in the side. So I'm an October baby, and I love my pumpkin stuff, including my pumpkin spices. I will admit I get a basic bitch around this time of year in October. So
nice. I'm actually, no, for sure.
I'm good on the pumpkin spice. I'll just throw that out there. It might be basic, but pumpkin spice I can do without.
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to drink that caramel pumpkin next week. So I'm actually pretty excited to try that. And there's one other one that I want to try, but man, I've got too much beer in my fridge, man. I got to drink all of it.
Let me know when you're going to do the caramel pumpkin, because I also have that in the fridge outside. I'll do that the same way you do.
Hell yeah. It's probably gonna be next Sunday. So, like I said, man, I've got a lot of beer, but you see, just like any craft beer person, we buy more beer than what we can really drink. Especially me.
Oh, slow down.
Speak for yourself.
Slow down there.
Yeah, speak for yourself.
Dude, I'll have to send you guys a picture of my refrigerator. It's a little ridiculous, and I need to drink more. That just comes down to it. I just need to drink more.
You a kegerator?
Nah, dude.
You need a kegerator. Solves all your problems.
That would be nice. I'm not gonna lie. A kegerator would be pretty awesome. But anyways, the exciting topic that we actually have for today. So we actually all saw today the new Gran Turismo movie. I think it's actually called The Gran Turismo, if I'm not mistaken. I thought it was actually a really great movie. I enjoyed watching it. My watch actually, like during all the racing, was telling me that my heart rate was going up. So obviously, it was a pretty exciting movie. But yeah, I actually enjoyed it. It had good racing. Apparently, it's actually a real life story of actually a sim driver that became a pro racing driver. He had only driven a handful of times prior to actually becoming a pro racing driver, which is kind of cool and interesting. But essentially, Polyphonic Digital, I think, is the company that actually made Gran Turismo. They partnered up with Nissan, and they kind of created this GT Academy. So essentially, they sent invites to whoever had like top times at specific tracks. Or just overall, like just best times, and then they sent them an invite to do like a special racing race, and whoever got podium or first position ended up kind of moving forward to this GT Academy experience thing, which is kind of cool. I don't know if they actually still do it. I don't know if you guys keep up with the GT Academy, but it definitely is actually interesting. I'll kind of give my inputs on the whole sim racing thing later on, but I enjoyed the movie. Just kind of want to hear your guys' thoughts on the movie as well.
I thought it was really good. We all kind of grew up playing the same racing games. Gran Turismo was kind of, when it first came out on, I think it was PlayStation or PlayStation 2.
PlayStation.
On the original one, original PlayStation. I mean, it was revolutionary. It was the coolest thing ever. Just the amount of cars that you could get, the amount of tracks that you could drive on, and it was kind of like the movie was a true testament to like the dream that we all thought when we played the game, right? How cool would it be if I just get really good at this game and become a race car driver? And obviously there's a lot more involved with that. But yeah, the story of it is really intriguing. I really, before this movie came out, I guess I never really paid attention to it. But this guy, his name's Jan Martinborough. He was the one that won, won out and became the racing driver for Nissan. So it's kind of a really cool story. I really liked the racing. It was shot very, very well. Like Eric said, it's kind of edge of your seat action the whole time. David Harbour. I'm a big fan of him. He's a great actor, in my opinion. I first saw him on
Stranger
Netflix
Things
show. Stranger Things,
yeah.
Upside Down and everything. And he's
Hopper.
He's an awesome Hopper, yeah. He's an awesome actor, and I just his personality is great, and I think he really fit that part very well. So
yeah, no, he definitely did.
It was good. I do question a couple things. The crashes. There was some things that were just added drama, and
yeah,
I've been following the Nürburgring for probably the past since 2015, 2014. I don't remember a significant crash like that in the near future or in the near past. I could be wrong. I know there was some controversy over the crashes, but as far as like how true, accurate they are. But I mean, it aside from that, it was an amazing movie. Coming from somebody who played and who found out about it after everything was issued, because I think it was PS2 is when they started the driver academy. It might have been PS3, but once PS2 got the Ethernet and you could see other people's boards, the player boards and what percentage you are ranked for it was your region or your country, and then it was international. It was interesting. So it was a good movie, and it, always good to see somebody, make it.
So, just a note on that. I just looked it up on the actual crash. It was in 2015. Spectator killed after Jan Martinborough crashes in Nürburgring. Now, granted, it was probably glorified in the movie a little bit, but there's a picture of the car, and they definitely did clear the fence. So it looks pretty bad. So
yeah, they straight say that the car left the track at the Flugplatz section.
Yeah,
right.
vaulted the catch fence, landing on its roof in the spectator area. So it truly did lift off and launch over the fence.
Yeah, I
misspoke. I was talking about the Le Mans crash. I apologize, not the
the German guy in the RE.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't remember that. So that's something
I don't remember
I'm
that
intrigued.
either. I mean, obviously, like a few things when it comes to movies, they're definitely going to over dramatize things. I mean,
Mhm.
it's
Of course.
it's cinema. They have to add a little bit of more hype or add a little bit more drama
Yeah.
to the movies. Because that's how you keep somebody engaged or intrigued like into the movie. So, but yeah, I actually do recall that accident. At that point in time, I really wasn't following racing too heavily. I mean, like, granted, it was that 2015 was what 8 years ago. I wasn't following racing very heavily, but I actually do remember that accident when it did happen, because if I remember correctly, it was involved around the whole GT Academy thing, and there was like I do recall there was like a big controversial thing because they were saying that like sim racers don't belong on track. Um, Again, the whole sim racing thing and driver thing is going to be a whole different topic, which I kind of don't want to get into right now because it's going to spiral into something else. But yeah, I actually do recall that accident. But the crazy thing is that because I never followed racing back in the day, or I didn't follow it very heavily, I didn't realize that it was Jan Martinborough that was actually the one that actually was involved in the accident. So, but anyways, sorry for interrupting.
Uh-huh.
You're good. You're good. And it was a good movie though. It showed the progression and everything with it went good. I think it kind of gave Nissan some marketing, where they didn't. It does kind of seem like a fail domestically from what they were trying to achieve.
Mhm.
But the movie was good about even the background and even the little bit of controversy of who won the Academy. We're not going to spoil it for you guys, but there was some controversy there. And, just I don't know. Overall, it was a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys on that one. And even at one point in the movie, Eric turned to me. It was like one of those like heart wrenching moments, like a father and son thing. He was like, "Dude, why they gotta put this kind of emotion in these movies?" Like, I mean, it had us all kind of like pulled in and everything, and the whole dynamic of stuff. And dude, I was sweating over the movie, man. Like I was having like the anxiety sweats. I'm watching some of the race scenes, and I'm watching. And I'm just like, brakes. And you guys know my feelings on brakes. And I'm just like watching these guys drive. I'm like, brakes. And dude, it had me. I mean, it had me like on the edge of my seat. Like literally, like I was sitting there sweating at times. I think it was like you were saying earlier, Mike, beautifully shot. I mean, it looked like it could have been some professional footage, like better than we're used to seeing for an actual race. And having all that stuff kind of going on and the whole story behind it. And yeah, I was reading some stuff here while you guys were talking that the order of events isn't the way it happened. Like apparently the Nürburgring crash was actually a couple years after their Le Mans race, so that already happened. Wow. And they're basically saying that in the movie that propelled him to greatness for Le Mans, and apparently that actually happened a couple years later.
No kidding.
So again, the events in the movie don't, although mostly true, don't line up timeline wise with the actual events in the real world. But again, it's Hollywood,
based on a true story,
right? It's Hollywood, it's drama.
Any movie like that,
it's designed to grab you and drag you along and all that stuff. And in that aspect, I think they did a phenomenal job. Again, the race scenes were great. The cars sounded right.
That was one of my favorite parts about the movie.
Yeah, there was some drama between racers that was realistic to what you see in the real world. Like I liked it. I mean, I'd see it again. My wife wants to see it now from talking about it.
Nice.
So, she loves Ford and Ferrari. So, like, when I was telling her about this, she's like, it sounds kind of like that rivalry through there. And she's like, I want to see it now. So, yeah, so my wife already wants to see it after talking about it with her. So, so I'm excited to rewatch it when it comes out.
I feel like
one of the things.
Oh, go ahead, Carmelo.
One of the things I think about more with us talking than I initially thought about was, I think most people thought about this as, you have to know the game, you have to be into racing to be into this movie.
No.
I think the cinematics of it and the story actually draw people who aren't Gran Turismo or sim fans or even arcade game fans.
Yeah.
I think the way that it was shot, would the way the story was told would draw other people in, not just the racing fans and people like us.
Well, and you think about it too. You think about what this movie and what the real life story means to racing now. Like every professional racer, as we know it, practices now with sims. Like that is part of their regime and how they train for things. They're training on these games, on these simulations for the actual tracks they're preparing for. So, I mean, you went from people making fun of these guys as gamers that can't actually do this to proving they can, and now now that sim is an integral part of actual racing practice. I mean, it's pretty wild when you think about it. Like, this dream has become a reality, and now that reality has been forced upon these professional drivers as an actual legitimate way to get ready.
Yeah. So kind of piggybacking on that, I guess we're just going to kind of talk about sim racing right now. But yeah, you are right, Nick. There actually is a lot of people that actually use sim racing as a form of training, because Formula One, actually, for example, they actually use sim racing as a form of training, because obviously Formula One, there's a lot more money. So they actually use like these super high end, like sim rigs where they actually simulate movements. So like amazing. Obviously the only thing they're not going to simulate is going to be the G-forces, but I mean, like, simulating the movement of the car itself. They simulate them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like the movement of the car, not the G-forces, because like you have to think, like, when you're in the car,
there's that one ride at Disney where you're in the rocket. And that thing will make you almost want to puke, because it actually, with the hydraulic motion, makes you feel G-forces. So it's very possible. I mean, there's basically one.
Yeah, you might be right on that.
And in the way, like, last year when I was in Italy, I went to Maranello, and I think it was like 25 years to do a 2 or 3 season old Ferrari sim. They had 3 or 4 of them out, and talking with the reps at Scuderia, they were like, yeah, these are the old sims. Updated games, but the sims themselves are old, and they're just toned down a bit. Because, I mean, there was, I was going down the straight of the Red Bull. I figured a track I know well. And after turn 1, you go through turn 2, which is kind of a slope, like a gentle left. And then you're heavy on the brakes for a hairpin. And I remember the first time I hit the brakes, because going into turn 1, it was, it was just nice and slow, took it easy. The whole thing went forward. There was movement in the wheel. It started jerking around, pulling me around. And, there's multiple hydraulics. And I agree, it's not going to be the full, the full G. But it is a lot more than I anticipated or was expecting, even knowing that they were somewhat true sims.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like, I didn't realize that it would actually simulate even like some form of G's, because I honestly, that's something that didn't even cross my mind. But yeah, you guys are right. Like, well, Nick is right with the whole man, what is that? Mission Space, is that what that ride is called in Epcot? Is
Mission
that right?
Space at Epcot.
Yeah. That one, yeah, you're right. It does actually simulate the feeling that you're actually like in a rocket and going up to space. Actually, this is crazy. Now that you're talking about it, I think somebody died actually in that ride, like when it first opened up years ago.
I mean, I've almost gotten sick a couple times. I think it's brutal, man. If you ride the extreme version, it's brutal.
I've ridden the extreme one. Yeah,
seats depending on where you sit. I think it also makes a difference on what if you're the driver or the controller or whatever.
Yeah. But anyways, so back into the whole sim thing. So I know. I mean, you guys know, and everybody on that, all of our listeners is actually going to find out very quickly that I'm a huge drifting fanboy. Like, I'm into drifting. I definitely want to get into drifting and just know how that car control actually feels like and actually is. But there's a lot of drifters that actually use sim rig racing or sim racing as a form of training, because you think about it, with drifting, it's not just like, oh, just putting the car on track and you just run it. Like, you're running tires, you're putting a lot more abuse and a lot of stress on your drivetrain components, because you're constantly clutch kicking, you're constantly pulling the e-brake, so it's putting a lot of stress on the brakes. So sim racing for drifters is actually it's a more cost-effective way for actually doing training. So there's a huge community when it comes to people in drifting and sim racing, where when there's a new track that comes out, within a matter of like a couple weeks, that track is available for you to download and be able to drive on it, which is crazy. And it's not just the tracks; it's also the cars. So people are building these really famous YouTubers cars, like Adam LZ, Taylor Ray. There's a YouTuber. He's a little bit smaller, but he's pretty well known. His name is Jimmy Oaks. There's another guy. He's actually pretty popular. He just got into YouTubing earlier this year, but he's a phenomenal YouTuber, and he puts out really good content. His name is Grant Anderson. He goes by Instagram on Instagram. And a few other ones. There's a guy from Japan called Noriaro, but their cars are in a set of Corsa, which is actually the sim racing that everybody uses, because like it's super customizable. Like you can customize tracks, cars, and you can actually put specifications. You can put car alignments and things like that. So excuse me, that's actually like one game that everybody uses is Assetto Corsa. So it's kind of cool. Like sim racing before was something that was just like, oh, you're just a video gamer, and now it's actually incorporated into training for motorsports.
Well, you got to think about it from a professional standpoint. It's a hell of a lot cheaper to crash a $500,000 car in a video game than it is to crash a $500,000 car in real life.
Well, yeah.
So I can see, multiple different racing sanctions being able to use this stuff and have some meaningful impact on it. I mean, you learn a lot of the things about the driving line and braking zones, and you can learn about a track before you're even there, really. So it's nothing but a tool at this point. So
yeah, no, for sure. All right, so since we're talking about video games right now, obviously because Gran Turismo kind of sparked this whole conversation. Again, great movie, great cinematic footage and things like that. But what are your guys' favorite car or racing game? I can start off. This is actually one game that
start it off, buddy.
Probably not a lot of people actually really know about, unless you were really heavy into like the whole Japanese car scene way back in the early 2000s. But my favorite one is a game that's called Tokyo Extreme Racer. So that game, do you remember? Do you know what game that is, Carmelo?
Yes,
dude.
I literally was looking it up because I couldn't remember the name. I was like, it's a highway racing game in Tokyo.
Yes.
I was like, what is it called?
Yes.
And
it was,
right as I found it, I started. Yeah.
It was, dude. That game
phenomenal.
Was so good. It was so good. I really wish that they would remake the game, but the people who made it, they're really not into like making video games anymore. It was, I think the people who produced it was Genki Factory. Man, that game was so good. It was and you know what's really funny? I know that, I mean, we were a lot younger, so I'm gonna admit this. Like when I used to street race, when I was like in my early teens, in my freaking Integra, and I wanted to race the world because everybody in Hondas wants to race the world. I thought that like how people initiated racing was you just come up behind somebody and you just flash your headlights because that's what you had to do in the game. Yeah, and then like just start going, and like I thought that's how it was, but I came to realize very, very quickly, okay, the video game isn't like real life. You don't just flash your headlights at somebody and then you start racing. Like you literally go right next to each other and then you count it down or you honk it off and then you go and race.
Right.
But man, that was such a great game. So they had Tokyo Extreme Racer 1, they had Tokyo Extreme Racer 2, and then they ended up making a drifting version of it, which is kind of cool because they made it in like Mount Akina, Hack 1, and all those other like mountain areas in Japan, which is called Tokyo Extreme Racer Drift. So obviously it has the same title. I had the games before. I actually gifted them to my friend Edwin that lives in Orlando. Shout out to Edwin. He's a great friend, awesome dude, probably one of the most humble people that I've ever met. He was actually telling me one day that he was looking for that game, and I'm like, dude, I have it. I don't play it anymore. I have it. I can give it to you. So I went to Orlando and like I literally brought, because I had Tokyo Extreme Racer 2 and I had Tokyo Extreme Racer Drift for the PS2. So I gifted it to him because they were just sitting there, and I'm like, you know what? He's gonna enjoy it more than I am. But man, those were really good games. So, but anyways, Mike, what was your favorite racing game?
So, I mean, I've been playing video games for so long that like there's been so many. I remember there used to be like original Nintendo. There used to be like a top-down off-road racing game where you're basically looking at the track like this. I think it was called like Super Off-Road Racer or something. Okay. And like you basically drive this little tiny car around the track and like overtake people. It was fun. But like the game that I would say, and I'm going to take a lot of heat for it, but I used to be such like a Need for Speed Underground junkie.
Okay.
Like to your point, it's like we were all street race wannabes, when we're younger. And I really, you start getting into those cars and you lower them and you put the neon and the ground effects on them, and all of a sudden you're chasing down other cars and running from cops. That's, you can go in and modify the cars and shoot flames out the hoods, and like it was cool, it was fun. Definitely not a sim racer. There's the furthest thing from a simulation that you could possibly get, because the driving mechanics were terrible. But it was just fun. You could drift around, and it was a good time.
The body kits, all that
stuff. I mean, I'm a huge Forza fan, but I mean that's a whole nother. That was after the fact. I'm into huge into Forza and Horizon games now. But like, I think Need for Speed was as a franchise was fun. It was fun to get into. So
yeah. That's still a good franchise game too, by the way. It still is.
It is, man, and they've gotten better now, and now they're more into racing. Like they've actually got more. Yeah, there's probably like 10 or a dozen games from Need for Speed now.
Yeah.
So they've evolved over the years, but I just remember those first 1 through 3 or whatever that they released, and they were just cheesy, just neon lights everywhere and shooting flames, and it was just silly, but it was fun.
And it's so weird. Before I get into mine, one of the games before Need for Speed Underground was like Need for Speed Porsche Enthusiast or Porsche Collector. Yeah. And it was like you were on these like European back roads and, driving these Porsches, you had to drive very properly. So to see them go from that to, like Need for Speed Underground and, I don't know, anytime I hear Riders of the Storm, that's instantly what I think about.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So that was a flashback.
Well, and, and then there was the Hot Pursuit games that they did for a while.
Shortly after,
and then those are basically you're just running from the cops. But it's, I don't know, man. It was all fun. You're supposed to have fun with video games, so.
Yep. So I'll say one of my most favorite arcade racing games was Need for Speed Underground, Underground 2. I want to say the first one was better than the second, just because it had a lot more firsts and very customizable. I'm going to throw like a little shout out to Top Gear Rally back on 64. I want to say that was my first. I don't know if you call it
I remember that game,
but that was a fun rally inspired, somewhat real game. At least from what I remember, I was probably like 7 or 8, maybe 9 when I played it. Phenomenal game. Very different than like Cruisin' World and all. Even the F1 games of those days were just basically an arcade game with a filter. But I'm kind of torn. I mean, my favorite game, I'll say the game that continued my love for cars would be probably Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec. And I know like the movie's out and all this, and it's nothing to do with that. Because I remember that in 4, and in Gran Turismo 4 is when they didn't have the shortened races. So if you wanted to do the 24-hour Le Mans, it was a full 24 hours. You could pause. You couldn't save. Yeah. And, they had rally events. And I probably have a couple thousand hours logged in there. At one point I had a wheel and pedals. Nothing high-end, but I would say that would probably be it. Because even Forza, when I had a PlayStation or a PS1, PlayStation 2, never had a PS3. Later I had a PS3, but I ended up going from that, took a few years break from video games, and then went to an Xbox. And Forza was more user-friendly, but less sim. And I don't know about Gran Turismo 5. I never played GT5. But I don't know, GT4 and even GT3 were just such great games. And, like if you didn't wash your car, you didn't do an oil change, you'd lose a couple hundreds a lot. And, for whatever reason, you could feel brake fade. You could, if your tires were too hot back then, you could feel those. Weren't Forza. I don't know if because the races weren't as long or the car reset every time. It wasn't the same satisfaction of winning, a 2-hour race or like, what is it?
Yeah.
Bathurst. I remember I won like the 4-hour, 6-hour Bathurst one day, and it took me like 2 days to do it. But when I won, it actually felt like I could have achieved something, like it was real. not just it was like a 40-minute ordeal.
Hmm.
So I'll go with the Gran Turismo 3 or 4. I couldn't choose between.
Those were both really good
Nick,
games.
what do you got as your favorite? Yeah, no, I think
so. I've been while you guys have been talking, I've been Googling trying to find a couple things. Like, obviously, I played Need for Speed and Midnight Club, and Gran Turismo was probably one of the first like truly quality, more authentic games that I played. But dude, there's when I was a kid and we used to hang out at the marina a lot on the weekends. A friend of ours on, I want to say it was the old school Nintendo or Super Nintendo, had a game. I finally found it. That was probably one of my first racing type games. It's a vehicular combat game. It's called Rock and Roll Racing, and you're on these like funky like space post-apocalyptic stages driving around. But dude, the one thing that I remember is this is like I think where like an early love of metal came from, because it was all like 70s and 80s metal songs and stuff, and like the main song was War Pigs by Black Sabbath, and that's always stuck in my head ever since then. Like, that was the one that always stuck in my head. Like, I think about this game, I have to Google it, like, Nintendo war car game, War Pigs. Like, I'm trying to figure this out. It was just one of those like wild things. But man, probably one of the ones that I put the most time into. I played Forza with you guys here and there, just dabbling around, but it was on Xbox back in the day. Like, I want to say it was the OG Xbox when Xbox Live was kind of getting big. And I think this is the right game. I want to say it was the Sega GT 2002.
Okay.
And it was, if this is the game I'm thinking of, it was just wow, right? Because you're just online, you're talking to people, you feel like you have comms on, like you're just kind of going at it. The real world tracks and stuff like that. And it was simple things, dude. It was dumb things. We'd play like a game of cat and mouse where like everybody was trying to get away from one person. You'd be going the wrong way, whatever. But they had things like it introduced me like TVR models and just all these wild supercars from around the world that you never heard of in the US because we didn't have them. Like the TVR Speed 12. That was like the ultimate car to get in this game, which is this badass, like lightweight British supercar with a big ass engine in it. And it was awesome. Where you'd get together and it was no different than getting together with a bunch of people on Call of Duty and be like, all right, headshots only, pistols only. Yeah. We'd get together and be like, all right, Mini Coopers only. Let's rip around the Nürburgring and Mini Coopers to see who can win. Yeah. Like, it was stuff like that. It was just fun, right? It was whimsical. It was fun. It wasn't serious, but great scenery and all that kind of stuff. And that was one of the games I spent the most time on. That, and I dabbled a little bit around the same time in MotoGP on the Xbox Live from the Superbike portion of it. Even though I never really followed it much, it was just fun. Had a handful of people that I met in other games like that. I bought it, played it. It was a good time. So obviously, for me, racing games are a big part of my gaming history. It's mostly first-person shooters and some strategy RPG type stuff. But those are some games that definitely made a big impression on me.
This is really bringing back memories. Like remember all these old video games, right? Man.
Like, now you're talking about 2 a.m, trying to be quiet, hiding under your shit.
Now you're talking about combat. Now you're talking about combat automotive games, and I'm just thinking about like Twisted Metal.
Twisted Metal
show is great. You haven't watched the show on Peacock? It is awesome. Highly recommend.
I used to love Twisted Metal.
Yeah, Anthony Mackie and a couple other people in it do a phenomenal job acting. It is a solid show to watch, talking about cars and everything. Awesome show to watch.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Did you guys, not necessarily cars, but did you guys ever play, was it Road Rash, or it was a motorcycle game?
Road Rash, yeah, where you hit them with chains.
Yeah.
Well, it was chains. Yeah. That's funny.
Kick them, I think.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
you know what's kind of something that I kind of do miss from like older video games, like Gran Turismo. I am gonna make one comment about the movie. I am really disappointed, and this actually did disappoint me about the movie. I kind of wish there is one soundtrack from Gran Turismo 2 that was extremely popular, and it was, to this day, anytime I listen to a song, kind of like how I think Nick or Carmela mentioned that one song with one of the older video games, Kickstart My Heart from Motley Crue. That was like the theme song of Gran Turismo 2. I'm so disappointed that they did not. Yeah, Gran Turismo 2, actually, that was like the theme song, or like one of the main soundtracks. but they used to have like a bunch of like older music from like the 80s and the 90s that were like I guess the soundtrack of the game. But that's something that was kind of cool. That
it's crazy how that sticks with you.
Yeah, like music, but I feel like that's what like these older video games actually did. Like they inspired us to actually like kickstart our passion with with cars and our enthusiasm with cars.
Ooh.
But not just that, but like the style of music, because like I listen to rock music, Mike listens to rock music, so does Nick and Carmelo. So like we all listen to rock music because it's like these video games that we're playing when we were little kids, the background noise of the soundtracks, they were all rock songs. So that was kind of cool. I mean, like, granted, like Forza, they do have something that's kind of cool, which is that they have the channel. Well, Forza Horizon has like the channels and stuff that you can pick and toggle through. So of course I have mine set to the rock station.
GTA. I mean, GTA's been doing that since day one.
Yeah.
I could go on a tangent about this all day, but like I think that's just video games in general. Like right now, I'm thinking of like Tony Hawk. Like I know the original Tony Hawk. I know the the soundtrack.
Basically, it comes down to psychologically they know that music matters, and they've we're wired for the sound. So it's just
for sure. For sure. Well, being in the topic of course the Gran Turismo movie and all of these games, so they released well, I know 2 weeks ago they released one of these cars, and this past week they released the second one. So it's the Mustang GTD and the Corvette GT3R. I mean, you guys already know if between picking and choosing between one or the other, you guys already know which I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick the GT3R C8. That thing looks ridiculous, man. I have a couple of things on here. Let me see if I can screen share.
Well, do you want me to screen share from Corvette's website?
Yeah. Go ahead and share that. Hold on.
All right, let me screen share. Since we're talking about the Corvette, I'm sure Nick will probably have the Mustang pulled up. So let me
go ahead and share that because I can't share it.
All right. So there you go. Corvette GT3R.
Yeah, so I have
and this is a race car?
Yeah, these are
legal, right?
No, these aren't going to be street legal. And I'm sure that the GTD Mustang is not going to be street legal either. I mean, if you look at the car, like there's the rear end, literally there's nothing. There's like a firewall on the GTD Mustang, and then it's like the cross suspension that some race cars are actually doing right now. And I think, excuse me, it looks insane. But the GT3R Corvette, I mean, I'm huge into Corvettes right now. Obviously, I own one. But picking between that or the GT3 Mustang, I would pick the GT3R. I don't know why. I want to hear your guys' inputs on which one you guys would pick. But I would definitely pick the C8 Corvette.
Do you know the price point of the Corvette?
I don't actually.
GTD is like 280 to 350 is what rumor or speculation is on the GTD.
Yeah, the GTD Mustang is targeted for 300 right now.
These are obviously going to fall into separate sanctions, correct? I mean, GTD versus GT3R. I mean,
they're going to be different.
I have not heard. I have not heard a price point on the Corvette, but I mean, we're talking by the time it's all said and done, and you're racing that thing, it's probably $500,000. It's got to be,
Yeah.
So, but I mean, they're both awesome. I think it's great that American manufacturers are still producing some badass cars like this. They're keeping V8s alive as long as they possibly can as well, which I think is great. I know we've all been fans of watching Corvette race.
Yeah.
The C6, I know Eric and I were lucky enough to see at least one race with C6s still running around, I believe, or maybe it was
no,
C7s
it was the C7R. Yeah, it was the C7R that was running when we went.
So I think it was the first year of the C7R though when we went for the first year. And we get to see that car, progress over several different years when we go to Sebring, and it just sounds amazing. The big throaty V8. Since they've changed over to the C8, there's a lot different sound, but I think they're still amazing cars. I mean, when I was just looking at it, I mean, it's a 5.5 liter flat plane crank LT6 derived from the Z06. So looking at 500 to 600 horsepower with a 6-speed sequential. I mean, that sounds like a good recipe to me. So I don't really know much about the Mustang though. I know Nick probably can give us more details on that. Maybe Carmelo can. I haven't looked a whole lot at it. I looked at pictures.
Yeah, I haven't done a whole lot of jumping into it. I have it pulled up in the background on my screen right now. But here's the difference with the GTD. The GTD has actually incorporated technology into it that is actually illegal in racing now. It has incorporated things that have been, removed from professional racing for whatever reason, because this is actually a street legal car. This is the street legal version of the new Mustang GT, whatever that's going to come out and be racing at Le Mans. So this is actually this is designed. They want to go after Aston AMG Black, the AMG GT Black, and they want to go after the Porsche GT3 RS street cars. They want to be able to beat them both on the track and as street drivers. So this thing will be legit on the roads. I mean, realistically, you look at the aero, you look at some of the design cues and stuff like that, and I mean, to me, this just screams baby Ford GT for not
it does.
money. Realistically, but my understanding is it's basically running a current Shelby GT500 engine, being the 5.2 supercharged. So I'm guessing it's a Predator motor. I haven't actually dove down into it, but I'm sure it's a Predator motor because those things are pushing out over 700 horsepower as they are. But one of the other cool things about it too is they couldn't do mid-engine. They thought about it, but it would have thrown off the balance. So what they did was instead put that big ass supercharged V8 up front, and they introduced a transaxle into the rear, like a lot of the Porsches and Vettes do and stuff like that, to eliminate that weight in the center and move that weight to the back to get that 50-50 balance. So it's going to be a track monster, but that you can drive to the track and back home, which I think is pretty cool.
Estimated starting MSRP is 300.
300,
so.
yeah. So is it attainable for your normal buyer? Absolutely not. Is it still pretty damn cool? Yes. I hope we get one through our dealership as a special reservation so I can just touch it, see it close up. But it's going to be a wild piece of machinery.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think I never thought I'd say this, but I might go the GTD solely because it's street legal, right?
Right, and that would be my reason for choosing the Ford in this particular case. And
normally I wouldn't, if they were both, no offense to Nick, I know you love Ford, and I mean I've had my share of Fords as well, but a $300,000 Mustang that is not a race car is a ton of money.
Yeah.
Well, Multimatic.
What's to say it's not a race car? It's simply a street legal race car.
Well, right, but there's a difference of the Corvette is designed from the ground up to be a sports car. The Mustang is reserved because of the price points it has to meet at lower levels, right? But Multimatic getting in, I read somewhere a day before launch or the day of launch that it's not going to be on the new S550 platform. It's
pretty much
separate
ground up. I mean, they ground up built it to compete with the GT3 RS from Porsche. It's 100 millimeters wider on the on the body. It's almost an entirely full carbon fiber body. It is built to directly compete with $200,000 to $300,000 Euro supercars. I mean, it is a new beast all of its own. I am sure it's not gonna be a mass production at that price point and whatnot, but it's definitely gonna be interesting. I think you're gonna get a lot of the people that are gonna come from Shelby GT500s that couldn't quite either afford or couldn't get into the lottery for the Ford GT that could afford it, are going to jump into this thing and make it a pretty big deal. That's what I think. We'll see, but
here's my question: since this thing is street legal, what would you put up against that as far as street legal? I know you said GT3 RS, but what about the Corvette Z06?
I mean, from a price point perspective, no. But I mean,
Z06 is going to be way cheaper, and it's probably just as fast.
Well, but it's not going to have the same structure.
For sure.
The roots of the the Z06 is a sports car, where this is a ground up race car that's designed to look like, a
Right.
current generation.
This
Mustang.
thing's got a solid 130 more horsepower, and the CEO Farley at Ford, Jim Farley, straight up says this is its whole purpose is to go up against the AMG Black Series, Aston Martins, and Porsche GT3 RS. They wanted to beat Porsche at Le Mans, but they also wanted to be a better street car. That's straight up what he says. So that is the entire point, is to knock off the big Euro boys off their pedestal, and
but it doesn't have is it going to have the luxuries though in the street legal version? I mean, is it going to have the same luxuries as you would get in an AMG GT
at $300K? Oh man, I sure hope so.
I would hope so, right?
It's hard to say, as it's not a fully released project or a production car yet.
So there's a couple cars that this reminds me of. The last gen Viper ACR was similar, but still built off of a Viper, right? Bunch of race car parts. This kind of reminds me of like a modern rendition of like a Ferrari 599 GTO. Ferrari's done this a couple times. Other than Porsche, is the one manufacturer that I can recall that has stripped down cars, or there's cars in a GT class, whether it's GT3, GT2, GTD, and has made them, a street legal version of the car. There might be a couple other brands that I'm not recalling right now, but ultimately, I mean, this is interesting. It's just $300,000 is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money for Mustang, essentially.
And they're only making, it says their expectation is to build between 1,000 and 2,000 at most of this. I'm sure they're all going to sell. They're all going to pre-sell. But the one thing I was just reading here too is, so the prototypes have very tinted privacy glass, so it's hard to see inside. But people are saying you can see the S650's gauge cluster and infotainment screens. Some nice racing style Recaros. No rear seats, probably because of the big ass wing coming through the chassis in the way. Yeah, and it does say some of the options do include a special rotary shifter. And shift paddles made from titanium parts of a Lockheed Martin F-22 fighter jet. So, I mean, they're doing some wild things, but it appears to have what's going to be close to a production S650 interior, both in niceties and technology. So, that could be right up there to run against the Porsche boys and stuff, with a little extra nice trimming. But at the end of the day, if you're going to buy a street legal race car, do you care that much? I mean, some of these GT3 RSs and GT2 RS are caged out and stuff like that. They're not comfortable. Like, there's a purpose.
Buying a Porsche though. I mean, it's got
and that was the issue the Viper had. Is the Viper ACR. There was a couple different levels, but the high spec, I think it was 2, that had a price tag of like $150 or $180 several years ago, and they struggled to sell because Mike made a point. It's not a Porsche where, Porsche start at that high price tag, and there's a little bit of recognition with the brand, or the brand is established in that tier.
Right.
It's good to see Ford doing that.
The Viper ACR had 8 liters of America Freedom under the hood, though, so there was that. I mean,
bald eagle screaming.
The car was awesome. Oh my god!
But it had less power.
Big old engine,
and it couldn't stay relevant. It couldn't survive.
Man, it's a shame too.
I mean,
because dude, man, like the ACR Viper was so beautiful, man. It's like on the outside, like you see one driving, especially if it's got that massive rear spoiler in the back. You see it driving, and it's so eye catching. It's such an eye catching car. So like when I used to work in Bonita, there was a green one that used to drive way back in the day. It was like 2018, 2019, because I worked for the company for quite a few years. But dude, anytime I would see it, it was so eye-catching, not just for the color, but for that massive rear spoiler. And it's just like, oh my god, it was so glorious. Like that kind of like sparked my interest, and I want to say like a passion for actually wanting to own an ACR Viper one day, because dude, those cars are just gorgeous. Just such a beautiful car.
Yeah. There was one that went autocross. He was a local dentist or orthodontist, and he told me he bought the car. He did two or 3 weekends, and he told me their typical setups don't allow him to get out of first gear. Sometimes he gets into second. And so, I stopped seeing it, but that car was beautiful, even in first.
I mean, I can see that because I mean, like my Corvette, like when I took it autocrossing, I honestly, if I wanted to just rev it up onto a red line, I can probably run the whole track in first gear. I mean, second gear is going to be ideal, but yeah, like those cars have ridiculously long gear ratios. So, anyways, so just let's go ahead and do a beverage recap here on the beers that we're drinking. I am gonna start off talking about. I'll talk about the Prairie Artisan slush beer that I'm drinking right now, and then we can talk about the Spanish Marie butter beer afterwards. But the slush from Prairie Artisan, it's good. It is your typical sour, so it is very tart. You can taste a little bit of the strawberry and the raspberry, but the lemon and the lime is just kind of like there in your face because, of course, it is a very tart sour beer. That's my input on that. I don't know. I probably won't have that one again. It's a good experience to have for the first time beer, but yeah, that's my input on that. Mike, what about your beer?
So the Alamorada, I'm in the beer industry. I've gone full circle. I have been deep down into the craft beer world. And I'd still go back to like lighter style beers like this just because they're easy to drink. And I like drinking beer. I like to put them down. But this is definitely fits that mold. Very light, super refreshing. I think it's a low ABV. It's only about 5%. Yeah, 5% ABV. So it's a little bit higher than your typical domestic beer. But it's just super refreshing. It's still really, really hot out. So to just put down a nice, easy, blonde ale with a little bit of citrus in it, it's good. Just makes me happy.
Nice.
Are we going to talk? We'll circle back to this one. This is a whole nother ball of wax right here. But Carmelo, what? I guess why don't you start it off, Carmelo, since that's the only one you're drinking.
So since the only one I got tonight, it's good. It gives me, that caramel / apple taste. I don't know if you guys, I'm sure we've all been to Universal and had their butterbeer there. This is very similar with a slight tartness on the back end.
Yeah.
And I'm a big sour beer guy, and it's really good. It's not, it's not a thick beer. It's has a good consistency, and no, it's overall it's sweet, but it's not overpowering. I've had butter beers in the past that are super sweet, and maybe it's because it's tart, but somewhere along the way it has a good balance. It evens out, and no, I'm a big fan. This was a good pick, Eric. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely really enjoyed it. The art of it is actually kind of cool because it's Spanish Marie is known for having that as their mascot on all of their beers. They kind of like change it depending on the beer that they actually make themselves. Definitely check them out on Instagram. They post all of their beer can art. I'll put a link to their Instagram on the description of the video or on the podcast. But yeah, their stuff is actually really good. I tried a bunch of their beers when I was down there last weekend. Of course, I picked up a 4-pack here for us. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was very light. It was very refreshing, and it tasted just like butterbeer, but it just had that little kick of sourness and obviously a little bit of alcohol. So it was good. I enjoyed it. Mike, what are your thoughts on that? Or Nick, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Nick, go ahead and jump on.
I was going to say, so it is just on top of that. It is classified as a sour.
Yeah, it is.
Which I didn't know that prior to cracking it open. So to Carmelo's point, man, when you talk about the butterbeer at Orlando, this is probably, of all the different butterbeer type things I've tried, this is probably the closest to that flavor with a little bit of tartness. And I think we're so many of the, because somebody else said it, it's not too sweet, right? Like most of them are. And I think where so many go wrong, because this is a light one, this is actually only 5% ABV. I think where so many go wrong is they go with some of these heavier imperial styles and such and back sweet and try to get all that in there. And it just F's it up. And I think that's where you get that sweetness, and it's just like cloying in your mouth. It's just, I don't know. This is a phenomenally balanced version of it.
Oh yeah.
I'm not a sour person, but the slight tartness is great. This is awesome.
Yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed that. Mike?
I mean, I agree. Carmelo talked about balance, and that's kind of the number one thing that I was thinking with this. I like sour beers too, but it all depends, and it's tough. Sour beers these days are all over the place. This is definitely a sweeter sour, but you do get a little bit of that tartness at the very end. It's not enough to kind of give you your cheek pucker.
Yeah.
But this beer has, I don't know if anybody read the description, but it is described as a sour, but it's conditioned with cream soda, caramel, vanilla ice cream, butter, scotch, and whipped cream. And I know we all are, in future episodes are going to try some other ice cream style beers, but this one, it's blended well, so it's not like there's no chunks in it. There's not a weird kind of flavor profile that hits you. There's not a weird mouth feel and a texture to it. It's pretty smooth. So
they may not have meant to do this, but the head, when you pour this out,
yes,
it reminds me of a root beer float. It's got that kind of style, the big bubbly head, and it fits it so well.
So I think that is because of the cream soda and the actual ice cream that's in it. It kind of gives that bubbly froth.
It rounds the entire experience out with it, which is pretty cool visually and taste wise.
Yeah, nice. And
good pick,
thanks. Glad you guys enjoyed it. Nick, you had a couple of other beers too, or you had one other beer and one more drink. Wow, how were those?
Bourbon, phenomenal. I'm afraid that drinking the bourbon right before I drank some of the caramel pumpkin has made it tougher to taste this as well as I'd like to. I get the traditional pumpkin flavor, but I'm not picking up big on the caramel, and that could be my fault. I mean, drinking a 45% bourbon right before I cracked this open and started downing this.
Yeah.
The more of it I drink, the more the flavor I'm starting to recognize. But I mean, it's based on a pumpkin. I mean, you can't go wrong as far as I'm concerned, and I think it's a pretty solid choice. I was hoping to get just a little bit more of that caramelized kind of flavor to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we kind of talked about Southern Tier last week. Southern Tier is phenomenal. They make really good beers. Of course, they're pumpkin, Warlock. I'm looking forward to trying the caramel pumpkin, so we'll see how that one is. But back into race car stuff. Oh, hello. So back into race car stuff. So, and of course, talking about like all of the video games and the movies that we watched. What do you guys think is the best sounding car or engine? I can kind of kick it off. So I have two, and the reason why I have two is because I can't choose between one or the other. One of them is like a fully built race engine or car, and then the other one is a street legal car. So I'll start off with the race car first. So I think the 787B Mazda, you guys know I'm a rotary fanboy. There's something about the four rotor that is just on idle. It just sounds like a cammed out LS on crack. It sounds amazing. It sounds phenomenal. But then as soon as you step on the gas on that thing, it just sounds like a high pitched Formula One engine. It's so good. So good. It's such a great sounding engine. For anybody on the podcast that has not heard the 787B, I'll go ahead and I'll clip a video of the 787B right here. So you guys can actually hear that and enjoy it. But my second one is as soon as I thought about this question, this car instantly came to my mind is the LFA, that Yamaha V10. Probably by far one of the best sounding street engines or streetcar engines that you can ever listen to. Like the high pitch RPMs, they just sound so good. So for me, those are the two best sounding cars and engines. So Mike, what about you? What are your thoughts?
So you kind of beat me to it, but I was gonna pick the LFA.
Okay.
It is for being a V10, that thing just absolutely screams, and it didn't
Oh,
rev
yeah.
out to like 9 or 10,000 RPM.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing just kept going, and it was probably one of the most phenomenal exhaust notes from a production car in the last, I don't know, 20 years, I would say.
Yeah.
Just awesome car. But because you called that one, I got a couple standbys. So
Okay.
I'm a big Audi fan. I'm a big, meaning VAG group. I'm a big Lambo fan too. But I would say one of my favorite sounding engines is probably the 5-cylinder that you could find in the RS3. It sounds like a baby Lamborghini V10, and that is essentially because it is. It's half of a Lamborghini engine, basically with a turbo slapped on it.
Engine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's the note on it is just, I don't know, it's phenomenal. They sound amazing, especially with some aftermarket exhaust work done to those cars. And I know that engine has been in a couple other things.
Mhm.
I'm probably drawing a blank. Carmelo, you might know more. I know you're a Volkswagen guy,
the
but it's
Beetle,
the
Rabbit,
Beetle
and
definitely.
The base, NA, yeah,
in the NA form, but yeah. So that's what I would pick. I know I picked the
I know the
RS6 the other day.
sources for those well.
Yeah.
You have a car for that engine?
You were looking
You
at
have a car,
you were
just
looking
no
at
engine,
one.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's mine.
All right, so I'm kind of torn. There's two different engines. Ironically, one's a race car, one is not. But they're both kind of down the same path. So for my non-race car engine, it was really hard. Like the 2000s Lamborghini sounded amazing, whether you're looking at a Murcielago or a Gallardo. Buddy of mine just out of high school came into some cash and had an 07, 08 6-speed black on black Gallardo. First thing he did within a few months, put exhaust on it. It was beautiful. Beautiful V10. That sound was phenomenal. I was also contemplating the V12s in the Mercies, but for the street car, we'll do the V10s. The other engine is going to be the Ferrari, the F1 V12. '2000s era. I don't remember what track there was. I was it. I don't remember what track it was, but I remember being a kid and watching F1 in the 2000s. Most of the races were in the middle of the night here stateside, so I'd be up. It'd be 2, 3 in the morning, and I'll never forget. It was like Rubens Barrichello and Michael Schumacher going down a straight. It might have been in Japan. It might have been Circuit de la Sarthe back then, and just hearing that engine, the high pitched screams, and that to me was probably the ultimate engine in a race car. It's just a beautiful sound.
So, nice.
Gotcha.
Good picks.
So, well, I gotta call out one of Mike's picks there on the 07K, the 5-cylinder Volkswagen. It is to his point, it is a phenomenal sounding engine. It's a solid little power plant too. It is the engine that I am planning to swap into my old Porsche 944 for a lot of the reasons that it actually takes a Gallardo header, bolts right up, and you can easily put a V-band on there and boost it if you want to. It's just a cool little engine. And to his point, that Audi's now taken it, done it in aluminum, thrown it into the RS3 and the TTRS, and it is a powerhouse. You got some guys putting out 1,200 horsepower of these things, but I was also on that V10 train for one of my favorite engines. We talked about this actually at lunch earlier today. And for me, the LFA is one of those that is right up there. If not possibly one of my favorite sounding engines ever. But the other one I put up pretty close to it, and that in the V10 category is the Porsche Carrera GT. That thing screamed, man. That V10 sounded awesome. And it's such an iconic car, and unfortunately infamous, even more so because of the death of Paul Walker.
Yeah.
That's what they were in when they crashed, but it's such a shame. But beautiful car, beautiful engine. And, this was before I worked for Ford, but I got to call out from the V8 thing. One of my favorite sounding V8 may very well be the 5.2 Voodoo. That's found in the GT350 and the GT350R. From the factory, naturally aspirated, no exhaust modifications. That thing just screams and sounds absolutely amazing for a V8. And we love our vets. We love our LS based engines and the LT based engines and all this. And you can cam them and they sound so mean. But from the factory, a 5.2 Voodoo and a GT350 or 350R, it's probably one of the absolute best sounding V8s ever roll out of the factory without having to be modified. So,
nice. Yeah, didn't you have one in your showroom recently? I think it was the GT. Was it the 350R or was it just a normal 350?
No, we had the Shelby GT500 recently.
Oh, that's what you did.
We did have a normal 350. Yeah, the 350 wasn't worthy of the showroom because the 500 was on the showroom, but the 350 was pre-owned. It was black on black. Man, I was drooling over it. That was like one of my ideal cars. I got to drive it. Do a little test drive on it, and the clutch was great. It was heavy, it was crisp. It was a badass car. Like for me, I think the perfect NA track car with power might be a GT350R.
Nice.
With a 6-speed Tremec. I mean, it's just an awesome, well balanced, powerful V8. So
yeah. I guess that's a perk of driving, or
that's something because I was raised by a general manager for Chevrolet. My mom always had vets, so that's saying something for me to call out Ford is probably one of the best factory rolling 6-speed track cars.
Yeah, I guess that's a perk of working at a dealership. You get to test drive some fun cars or some fun toys.
I've had customers come in and be like, "Hey, here's the keys to my McLaren 720S. Take it for a spin in the rain. Hey, here's the keys to my brand new M5 competition. Let's go get a ticket." I mean, I've had some cool opportunities to drive some things that I shouldn't be able to just because I've made friends with the right people, and it's fun.
That's awesome. All right, so I did want to do something fun. We're probably going to do this once a month or once every few weeks, but we are going to start doing this. I guess you can call it a segment that we're going to call it Guess the Track for now. So I am going to go ahead and clip the video here. You guys can watch it and you guys can guess the track as well. So go ahead and add it in the comments if you guys know what track that is. But I sent you guys a video. I know you guys all watched it. So I'm sure all of you guys are going to guess what track it is. But do you guys want to guess what track it is?
Sebring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Became kind of obvious to
us. It's Sebring.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the turn that we used to camp at was in that video, or just after starts. Just after where
it was definitely the video that Eric is talking about that he's going to link in on this video is, I believe, that leading up to the back straight. So it's after track 12. So somewhere in 12, 13 back there.
Yeah, that was
So,
actually turn
that's-
14. It's just
like
before turn 14.
14,
Yeah. It's 14, 15, 16.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because it's
14,
Yeah, and then
15,
it goes
16.
down. It goes
Yeah,
right
yeah.
then.
Yeah, it's 14,
'cause
15,
you
and
can,
16.
You can definitely tell the airport off on the left. You can tell the
Yeah.
barrier and the wall on the right. And
Yeah.
It was just the
leading up to
barriers
that
did it
turn.
for me.
So,
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
the
I
blue
think I
stripe
caught sight
barriers,
of
the
one of
double
the
stripe.
FAA towers too in the back.
Oh, yeah,
It
yeah.
does
Give it
help
away.
that we've
But,
gone to that track
Yeah.
several
Every
times,
year.
as well as we actually, have driven on it as well, or ridden
Yeah, I've
on
got
it. at
video.
least.
We could have used video of my Audi
That's
running
true.
it
That's
with
true.
the Audi Corral
It's true.
from the
Actually-
cockpit. But
From my Corvette, too.
yeah, that's
But,
what I got a lot
yeah.
of video from your vet.
Yeah. But yeah, I wanted to make the
so
first
you're-
one easy for you guys because, it's the first one. The other ones are probably going to be a little bit more difficult because they're going to be on tracks that we haven't driven on before. Obviously, they're just more like we probably driven on them on like video games and things like that, or watch videos of them. But yeah, I figured it'll kind of be fun. So yeah, if you guys want to go ahead and add on the chats below or the comment below what track that was, obviously at this point you guys already know what it is. Also, let us know in the comments below what were your favorite video games growing up. We definitely want to know, and what you think is the best sounding car that you've actually listened to. I'm sure there might be some cars that we haven't listened to before that you guys have heard of, that you've heard in person. So go ahead and add that to the comment below. Aside from that, that is all the time that we have for today. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate all of our viewers and all of our listeners. Remember to savor your brews. Don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you guys again. Cheers to booze and cars, and we'll see you guys next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.